Hi, this is Bill Raymond. You've heard of Jekyll and you want to build your own Jamstack website, but you also want to set up a local development environment on your computer. This video is for you. Let's get started. This video uses YouTube chapters. Feel free to use a scrubber to find the section that you're most interested in. If you're watching this video, you probably already know what Jekyll is, but here's a quick overview. Jekyll is a static site generator. It's part of the Jamstack family of site generators. It's blog aware, so you can create blogs. And also, it is based on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Unlike WordPress, there's no backend database or anything like that you need to worry about. Finally, it's supported by GitHub for GitHub pages, so there's some good documentation to be found and a lot of good training material. Of course, you can build your Jekyll site from scratch, or you can have a designer do it and then have a developer create it, but it does come with lots of themes that are available out there in the marketplace, and you can just go ahead and find those on the jekylrb.com site. That's the official site. It even has the installation documentation, most of which I have in this video already. This video is specifically designed for Apple Silicon computers. In this video, I'm going to be using my MacBook Pro with an M1 chipset, and I'm going to be using macOS Monterey, version 12. Any of those versions or greater should work for you. We are going to get started right after this slide, but I do want to point out, the first time setup for Jekyll will take a while, so be prepared for that. Afterwards, though, when you want to create new Jekyll sites, it's fast and easy. In this video, we'll just be using the browser and a terminal window. If you're not familiar with how to use a terminal window, go to your desktop and just click anywhere on a blank space. Click the Go menu item. Select Utilities. And then in the list of utilities, locate Terminal. Your view might look slightly different than mine. Double-click Terminal, and there you have it. You can close the Utilities window. Since you're going to be using the terminal quite a bit, you might want to go down to the dock, right-click the terminal icon, choose Options, and choose Keep in Dock. Okay, you can see I have my terminal window open, and I also have a browser open. If you don't already have a browser open, open one now and go to brew.sh. Now, Homebrew is a tool that's called a package manager. If you're not familiar with the package manager, just think of it as an app store, but you control it through the terminal window. Now, we need to install Homebrew on our computer. Of course, if you already have that, you can skip this step. So locate the icon here next to the command line under Install Homebrew, and you'll see that it turns into a little checkbox and it copies the text into our clipboard. Now come over here and paste that text, and you can see that here. Just please note that if you have any issues at all throughout this video, I always include the command lines that I type in the show notes for the video. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and press return. I'll type my password and press return again. Now you can see that it's going to install a number of things. It's going to install Homebrew, but it's also going to install what's called the Xcode command line tools. This is very important and required in order to use Jekyll. So go ahead and press return. This might take a while, so please pause the video if you're playing along, and I'm going to skip ahead to the end. Okay, I've expanded my terminal window, and you can see the installation was successful. You can also see there are some next steps, and I have to run these two commands. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'll just go ahead and select the first line by using my mouse, selecting that text, and copying it into my clipboard. Then I'll come down here to the command line and paste it. And I'll press return. If you don't see any error messages, that's a good thing. Next, we're going to run this eval command. So same as before, I'll copy that into my clipboard, come down here to the command line, and paste it in. Then I'll press return. Great. Now we have Homebrew installed, including the Xcode tools. So I'm going to do something fairly frequently here to keep the screen clean, and I'm going to type the word clear, and I'll press the return key. Now we don't have to see all of that text, and we can focus on each of the commands we're going to type. Jekyll is actually a Ruby application. Ruby's a programming language, so we need to install that in order for Jekyll to work. Now, you're not necessarily going to have to know Ruby, but there are some things that we're going to have to do to get it set up. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is put this command in here where we export the SDK root. This is just a little command that we run to make sure that any Jekyll components that use Ruby do not fail. So I'm just going to press return, and there should be no error message. And if we don't see anything other than a new line, then we're good to go. As I mentioned, Jekyll is a Ruby-based application, which means it needs Ruby installed on the Mac. Now, if I type the words Ruby space and then type -v for version and press return, you'll see it already exists on my Mac. Almost all Macs ship with Ruby. However, this is something that Apple put there. You really can't modify it. It's kind of locked down. So what we want to do is install a version of Ruby that we can use to work with Jekyll. So I'm going to clear my screen here. And the next thing we're going to do is type a command to get that installed. So I'll just go ahead and type brew install Ruby. And before I press enter, I'm going to type at 3.0. Now, why am I doing this? That's because I know that we're going to be installing Jekyll 4.2.x, and that is supported by Ruby 3.0.x. Maybe in the future there's a new version that's required, but I think we can assume that Ruby version 3 will be around for a while. So I'm going to go ahead and press return. This might take a while, so press pause on the video and I'll come back at the end. Okay, what you can see is that Ruby is installed. However, there's a few things that you need to be aware of. One, by default, all of the Ruby, if you will, executables, the binaries, they're going to be located in this 3.0.0 folder. Now we happen to have 3.0.3 installed. So just know that even though there's a 3.0.3, the actual Ruby application is still just in 3.0.0. Okay, now you'll see that we need to copy some text. It says, if you need to have Ruby first in your path, run this command. And we do. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Whoops. Try that again. There we go. So I'm going to copy this text right here. Why do we need this first in our path? When we run Jekyll, it's going to look for what's in the path list, and it's going to look for the first one. And the first one is by default the macOS version, and that's the one we don't want to use. Instead, we want to use version 3. So I'll just go ahead and paste that command in and press return. And again, we should see no errors. That's a good thing. Now let's just take a look at something here. If I type Ruby space -v for version and press return, you're going to see it says that 2.6. But what happened? We just installed 3. something, and also we said that's going to be the first one. Why is it showing up like this? That's because we need to quit the terminal, and then we need to come back in, and we should see something different. So I'm just going to type the word exit here. And now I'm going to come over here and quit terminal. Now I'm just going to go ahead and run terminal again. Remember, we put that down here in our doc. And I'm going to type Ruby space -v again. Now I can see that Ruby 3.0.3 is showing up. That's the first version that Jekyll's going to see, which is exactly what we need. Now that we've installed Ruby, we're going to use another command that will install two applications. One is Bundler, which you'll get familiar with later, and the other is Jekyll. So we're going to type gem install -- user -install bundler space Jekyll. So that will install those two applications. Go ahead and press return. Again, pause if you're playing along because this might take a few minutes. Okay, you can see that 27 gems were installed, and gems are little packages, so we don't need to worry too much about what they are right now. I'm just going to scroll up from that command that I typed and make sure that there's no red text or yellow text or anything that says error. So I think we're okay here, and we're good to go to the next step. When you are running inside of a terminal window, you're running a shell. Now, what that means does not matter to us right now. We just need to find out which shell it is. So we're going to type the word echo space and then $shell in capital letters and press return. You're either going to see ZSH or bash. I'm going to show you the command in just a moment for using ZSH, but I'll also share with you the command if you're using bash. Now I'm going to paste this command. You can see at the end here it says ZSHRC. That's the one for ZSH, and of course on the screen I have both the ZSH and the bash commands. When you're ready, press the return key. If no errors appear, then you're good to go. Finally, we're going to type gem env. And we're looking for this gem paths area here. And we want to make sure that they all say 3.0.0. And as you can see, they do. Welcome to this brief Git interlude. If you plan to use Git with your Jekyll installation, before you move forward, create a .gitignore file and add all of these elements. The DS store is specific to the Mac. Now please enjoy the rest of this video. When we create a new Jekyll site, it has to get put inside of a folder somewhere, and we're going to do that on the desktop. Just so you are aware, you can create a completely blank Jekyll site. You can create one from a template. You can even create a template structure if you want to create your own template. Or you can just create a Jekyll site using Jekyll's built-in theme called Minima, and that's what we're going to do in this video. So let's go ahead and make that folder on our desktop. We'll type cd space desktop, and then we'll type mkdir Jekyll test, one word, and press return. You can see that Jekyll test got created on the right-hand side of the screen. Now we're going to go into that Jekyll test folder. So we'll type cd space Jekyll test and press return. So I'm just going to clear the screen here and select this Jekyll test folder. Now we're ready to run all the commands required in order to get a Jekyll site set up on our local machine. The first command we type is bundle init, and we press return. You'll see a gem file got created over on the right-hand side. That's going to list all of the programs that are required in order to run Jekyll. I'm going to clear the screen and run our next command. I'll type bundle add Jekyll, and then I'll type -- version, and then there's a space there, and inside of double quotes, I'm going to type tilde greater than 4.2. So I believe while I'm creating this video, there's a 4.2.1, so we'll install 4.2.1. This greater than sign just kind of, I believe, keeps us from getting up to, let's say, a 5.0. Okay, I'll just go ahead and press return. There we go. And now you can see on the right-hand side, there's a gemfile.lock file. As we're working through this, again, this is sort of a Ruby thing. As I mentioned, you may not have to really do too much with it. So you need to know that those files exist. You need to know what's in them, but you really don't need to touch them that often when you're working with Jekyll. I'll clear the screen and we'll run our next command. We're going to type bundle config set -- local path And then in single quotes, I'm going to type vendor / bundle. And then I'll just go ahead and press return. Now I'll type bundle install and press return. Pause your screen if you're playing along because this might take a few minutes. Even though Jekyll is sort of a program, it actually relies on a number of different open source utilities that either the Jekyll team created or other people have created, and they're used in order to create the entire system we call Jekyll. And over here on the right-hand side, you can see they were all put into this vendor folder. Now that we've put in the components that Jekyll needs in order to run, we can actually add the Jekyll website to this folder. And we do that by typing bundle exec Jekyll new. Now what we're going to do is type this command, it's -- force. What does that mean? That means that there's files already in our folder. As you can see, we have gemfile.lock, and things like that. The force is going to say, hey, I know that there's files and folders in there. Please go ahead and build the Jekyll site. Then I'm going to type -- skip - bundle. And I'll explain that in just a moment. We basically have to install another thing called Webrick, and we'll take care of that in just a moment. So now we'll just type space period at the end. What is the period? That's just saying I'm in the Jekyll test folder. Go ahead and put Jekyll's website in that folder. I could have typed, for example, my website, and it would have created a folder underneath that Jekyll test, but we don't want that. So we're just going to type the period and press return. Now if we take a look over here at the Jekyll test folder, we have what looks like a website. There's an index file, there's a 404 page. So we are now getting to a point where we're starting to see the formation of a website. Jekyll has a dependency to this thing called Webrick, and apparently it was pulled from, I think it was pulled from Ruby at some point. It was something that was built in, and now it isn't. So if you look at a lot of Jekyll sites that show you how to install Jekyll, they'll skip this step, and your site won't build. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to type bundle add Webrick, one word, and press return. Because we just installed Webrick, we do need to do another one of those bundle installs. So type bundle install and press return. And one of the things that I like to do is also just type bundle update. I don't know if it's necessary, but I always do it. There. Okay, when you get down to working with Jekyll on a regular basis, you just have to remember to type all those commands, and it only just takes you a few minutes to do. Now, it's time to see if our website works. So I'll just go ahead and type bundle exec Jekyll serve. Now, that's all I have to type. But there's a really cool feature that Jekyll has, which is if you type another space and you type -- live reload, it will actually refresh your page as you're going. So what's nice about this is that if you modify a web page, you can see it update automatically in the browser. So I'll just go ahead and press return, and you can see there's a server address for us to select. So I'll go ahead and copy that URL, and I can just go up here to the browser and paste that link in. Here it is. This is Jekyll Minima theme running on our computer. You can play around with this. You'll notice that there's actually a sample blog post. There's an about page. You can just click around and make sure that it runs. If you want to learn how to edit your site, just check out my YouTube page, and there's a playlist for GitHub pages and Jekyll. If you're not familiar with how to use a terminal and using this with Jekyll, I do want to point out just a few things. One is in your terminal window, you can just type Control-C, and that will stop running the Jekyll server, basically the website server. And you can also just type exit, and once you do that, the terminal will stop. and you can just go ahead and quit that window. Let's do a quick recap on what we just learned. First, there's the first time setup, the thing that you need to do on your computer just once. And that's to install Homebrew. That also installs the Xcode tools. And the second thing to do is install Ruby. Remember, that's the programming language that Jekyll uses, so that has to be there in order for Jekyll to run. The next thing you do is create a Jekyll site. You do that by creating a folder, and then you install Jekyll. You also have to install a few of the components like WebRick and use that bundle update a few times. And then finally, you can use your browser to connect. And remember, you have that live reload option that's very useful while you're working on your code. Thank you for watching this video. If you want more like this, please like, comment, and click the bell to support my channel.